Alright, so I will see if this is going to end up as one video or multiple videos, but I'm going to try and do it in one video. So this is going to be the review for the ASUS ZenBook S16 2024 edition. So this is a very interesting laptop and one that this product category I've had my eye on for quite some time. So to give a bit of background, I've usually had kind of that fine line in between a workstation and a standard laptop. So I would say one of the very first ones I had was an ASUS Pro Art display. This is going to be, goodness, many years ago. I want to say this was with an Intel 4000 line chip. And I really enjoyed that laptop. It was one of the very first 4K screen laptops, although it did cheat to get there. But it also had a touchscreen, which I fell in love with from that day. And had that laptop had a dedicated GPU in it, and kind of that almost Mac follower type design. So not a specific Mac knockoff, but using metal builds and stuff, and just trying to be a better laptop than your standard run-of-the-mill stuff. From there, I had a Surface Book 2, which was absolutely phenomenal. If Microsoft had kept making those models after that, I would have continued buying them. It was absolutely an amazing laptop. And then after that, I kind of wanted more. The ability to really crunch some stuff if I was on the go. And so I ended up with the Razer Blades. And this is a very good question. Yeah, so this was the Razer Blade 17. This had the 3080 16 gig model. So this was a very powerful laptop, especially for the day. This could get some serious work done. But it was, again, it's a Razer, so it's thinner than all of its competition, but even still, it is a very stout laptop. But honestly, really enjoy this laptop. It's been very good. I don't see me replacing it in the very near future. It still serves its role as being able to kind of be, I'm somewhere and I need to produce a video or do some, serious photo editing, stuff like that. This guy's still going to be that go-to. Having that extra VRAM, having the ability to do things like that, that's not gone away. I don't see a major push to try and replace this with a newer model. But again, somewhere down the road, I'm sure. But right now, this is filling that need. But what really drove this was I've been doing more and more travel for work. And so I've got the work laptop with me, and then I'm also carrying a very stout Razer laptop with a very stout Razer laptop brick. Granted, the brick is better than others in its class, but it's still heavy and bulky. So what I really wanted was a thin and light that, one, I could take on a plane and not panic every time I didn't see an outlet in between the seats, because that happens all the time. And then two, it could be able to, again, it's not a huge chunky thing that I'm, having to fight multiple laptops on trying to be able to do, carry-ons. And there have been multiple times where I'm getting onto a smaller plane from, a smaller airport, and they're like, yep, we have no space for your carry-on luggage. It's all got to be in your hands, or you can check it. Except you can't check anything with a lithium battery, so good luck. And yeah, that was one of those where I was like, well, actually, guys, I've got so much with lithium in it, there's no way. Like, no, it's fine. Like, you don't understand. So, after that experience, I started really searching for something that would provide me the ability to have a solid laptop, but also not be the biggest, thickest thing in the world. Again, I've already got that covered with the Razer. I wasn't looking to replace that. I was looking to augment it. So, at the time, the brand new Qualcomm chips had just started hitting the market, and they were making quite a wave. So, the Qualcomm Windows on Qualcomm, I guess is the way I would say it, has been steadily progressing. They have made humongous strides on getting Windows and ARM to start working together. Windows is Windows. So one of the things that is both the blessing and curse for Windows is its compatibility. Windows is very compatible. When Apple decides that it wants to drop something, they're dropping it. They don't care. Windows gets a lot of pushback if they drop something. So as they're adding in this ARM support, they still have to keep everything else going. Whereas when Apple made the decision that they were going with ARM architecture, they just dropped everything else. I mean, literally unsupported at this point. So, I mean, you had Rosetta Stone for a little while, and if you didn't get your apps ported, tough. So, there was a huge push in their market to get things moving. Whereas Windows has been moving much slower. But with this year, the 2024 year, and a little bit into 2023, but mostly 2024, they've made a lot of progress on this, where the newest Qualcomm chips were, laptop compatible. So I say laptop compatible. I'm trying to say that they are not tablet-based chips. These are true, laptop chips, in that they can get enough done to truly be considered a laptop. Now, one of the things that they did bring to the table was a exponential increase in battery life. So the ARM architecture honestly, the ARM architecture when it comes to battery life has been leaps and bounds ahead of anything else out there. That's one of the reasons Apple went with it, and one of the reasons that, again, the Windows systems tend to trail on as well is, ARM has unbolted most of the stuff that's not essential, whereas your x86 architectures continue to drag along a lot of legacy pieces and parts due to compatibility. So, ARM has kind of taken this super streamlined approach, and it pays off in things like battery life. And, again, if it's in ARM's wheelhouse, they do an amazing job of it. If it's out of their wheelhouse, it falls apart very quickly. So, all that to say, I was looking. I looked at a lot of ARM laptops, but I couldn't find one that really fit. I could find some that kind of fit the idea that I was going for, but they were in a form factor I hated. Or, I found a form factor I loved with a great display, but for some reason they decided to put the lowest end chip in there and then, slap 8 gigs of RAM onto it. So there was always this trade-off. I couldn't find one that was like, yes. And then I started hearing, I'd heard rumors forever, but started hearing more concrete stuff about the new AMD chips. Now, these AMD chips were pretty incredible, and AMD has been on fire for a long time, and it shows. So this new set of AMD mobile chips is the very first Zen 5. Now, again, depending on when you're watching this, the Zen 5 desktop may have hit, and that was a miss. The Zen 5 on laptop, on the other hand, is incredible. So, Zen 5 on laptop has provided the ability to have your cake and eat it too. when I say that, I mean you're getting full x86 performance, no translation layer issues, nothing like that, and you're getting very good battery life. Is it the 14, 16 hours that you're getting on an ARM chip? No. But are you looking for an outlet every single second when you're on the laptop? Absolutely not. I would say you're realistically looking 8+ hours on battery life for your normal everyday task with the screen up at a normal brightness, which is pretty much all the way up. And yeah, it's great. As far as like, they nailed it on battery life. I have to give it to the AMD engineers here. This was what the market had needed for a very long time. And I won't get into the architecture and all of that. It's fascinating. I love it, but it kind of blows out of this video. So all of this chit chat to say, I was very interested. And as we started to see these laptops trickle into the market, there was one that really stood out. And that was going to be the ASUS ZenBook S16. Now, this is going to be diving into the review of that laptop. And the title of this review is Snatching Defeat from the Jaws of Victory. So, some of you, if you dig way back into your archives, may know that reference, but I'll leave that to you to find. Now, this laptop, in almost every sense of the way, is a home run. From design to screen to usability, everything about this is phenomenal. But ASUS dropped the ball so hard that this will actually probably end up being a 2 out of 5 star review. It's that bad. Now, I sit here very conflicted because I love it. Everything about it, the form factor, the amazing selection, everything is top notch. But they couldn't pull it together. Again, I genuinely have 2 issues with this laptop. 2. But one of them is so game-breaking and so nonsensical that it destroys the whole thing. So, let's dive in and we'll go through what makes this laptop what it is. So, as I alluded to before, the build is amazing. When I talk about thin, again, I've got the Razer laptop. It's pretty thin. And then you've got the ZenBook, which is thin on a level I had never seen before. Again, I know there were some, some ARM designs and some other things that were, in this ballpark, but for a laptop as strong as this is stupid thin. And it looks great. It really does. It comes in 2 colors. So you've got a black and a white version. I am a little frustrated that ASUS only packages the US version in high-end being black and the low-end being white. I like the white better. I've held both. I like the white better. In other markets, I want to say European markets, it's flipped to where white is premium, black is lower. But honestly, they should have allowed either color to go either way. That aside, it's still very, very good. They did come up with some terrible marketing mumbo-jumbo about ceruleum or whatever, some weird combination of ceramic and aluminum. Again, that's marketing mumbo-jumbo. The truth of it is, though, this is an amazingly sturdy product. It does not hold fingerprints as aggressively as some others. I would point to the Razer one here as well. So yeah, it's just, again, a very subtle design language. It looks and feels fantastic. So yeah, overall, I mean, design-wise, this is a win. I mean, I don't think you can get much thinner than this and still dissipate the heat that it does. More on that later. So, as you look at this shell, I mean, again, you're impressed by the fact that it's this wonderful metal. It feels great in the hands. It's stupid thin. So you open the laptop. And as you open the laptop, you're going to be greeted by perhaps the best display I have ever laid eyes on. I will give you this example that as I'm setting this laptop up for the very first time, I have it directly in front of my LG 42-inch OLED C4 model, which is considered to be one of the best OLED screens on the market. The laptop was brighter, punchier, and honestly just it stood out in front of the already amazing LG C4. So I cannot understate how amazing this screen is. The color accuracy is spot on. Again, I'm not a color science expert. Again, it looks good. And that's not even, like, you don't have to play with saturation sliders or anything like that. Out of the box, this looks phenomenal. It is also a touchscreen, which is an amazing return for me. The Razer did not have that. And in addition, it is an edge-to-edge display. So what does that mean? So for the Razer, I lost one of the features that I really like, which is the ability to have an edge-to-edge glass. Even if it's edge-to-edge with bezels, I still prefer an edge-to-edge glass because you don't get that plastic lip on the edge. It just kind of breaks it up, and I prefer the smooth look. Now, the other really interesting thing is that while this is a 16-inch device, they have crammed it in there. This guy has practically no bezels, to the point where if you go to adjust your screen tilt while using it, you will activate the touch function and move things around, because like just hooking your thumbs on the very edge of the screen is, there's no bezel there to catch your thumbs. It's like when they say edge to edge, they genuinely mean it on this. Let's see here. It is running a 16:10 aspect ratio rather than a 16:9. This gives you a little bit more vertical playroom. So, especially when you're doing, edits, highlights, especially Word, anything that's in the Microsoft Office suite where you have the giant ribbon that runs along the top, this gives you some of that real estate, quote unquote, back. And it's a great one to work with. Now, the other part that makes it so great is that when you're watching or looking at anything that is 16:9 content, the OLED, because it's OLED, goes completely black. So you don't notice as much the black bars on the top and the bottom because it's solid black. There's not a gray tint to it or anything like that. It's black. Now, again, 16:9, 16:10, those are both really good aspect ratios. I've even played around, again, like I said, with the Surface Book back in the day. It was a 3:2. If you're a photo shooter, that is an amazing aspect ratio, just because all of your photos spit out of, 3:2. That's just the way they work. So overall, really, really good there. I will make one note here, because I know this comes up all the time with OLED stuff, is the risk of burn-in. So I believe that they have done a very good job of trying to mitigate that risk. So what we see on this laptop is that the OLED protections are kind of baked in by default. So you're getting a pretty aggressive screen out time. You're getting pixel shift and some transparency layers as well. Those are all on by default. There are also additional settings like hiding taskbar and other stuff that they make very apparent and very easy to get to if you want to increase the what's the word that I'm looking for there? The protection level that you have. The other part that I see is, by default, again, they've got it's not even considered really a screensaver. It's kind of something baked in below the Windows screensaver. And so if you've got the laptop on anything that's static for a while, they'll pop up the little ZenRock thing so that you can, again, you're reducing the risk of having burn-in. I'm not going to say it's impossible, but for the most part, I feel like they've done a very good job of mitigating this. Again, you're probably not going to be, again, for most use cases, you're not going to have this laptop open with static images on it for the length of time that it's going to take to get burn in. So yes, if your laptop is sitting on your desk, you've got all of those features disabled and you're cooking something that's static on there, absolutely, it's going to happen. But if you follow normal procedures with the, normal safety checks in there, you should be fine. I really don't see that as being an issue. And in all honesty, the only time that I've experienced burn-in on an OLED was when I personally disabled all of the safety features on my C2, and that did result in burn-in over a week of a static image. But for your day-to-day stuff, this is going to be pretty darn safe. All right, so let's go ahead and dig down into performance. So this is where I found this laptop to really stand out. I know there are some other reviews out there for some other products that are a little bit thicker that, can leverage this processor to squeeze out even more. And that's great. I don't discount those at all. But I feel like they miss the objective. If I want a laptop with a dedicated GPU, I don't think, I feel like, if I want a dedicated GPU, I'm going to go for something more like the Razer. And, really get a dedicated GPU. But just doing a small dedicated GPU and then, bashing on this laptop because it doesn't have the same heat output, or the heat dissipation, rather, is a little so-and-so. Anyway. So this laptop does come with the AMD H370, I believe it is. And that comes with the brand new Zen 5 core structure. So it's almost, I know a lot of people throw it around as P and E cores because Intel kind of coined that to start with. These are different than that. I'm not going to dig into architecture. I love it and could probably talk for another hour on that topic. But just know that the way it's configured gives you even more flexibility than the original Intel P and E core designs did. And is a newer, better architecture on top of AMD's already amazing architecture. So, all of that, realistically, for your day in, day out stuff, this laptop is snappy, it's fast, it feels good. I think I even wrote down here that at no point did I ever feel like I was waiting on the laptop to make a decision. I'm executing stuff very quickly, I'm moving around, it's keeping up with my thought process on what I'm trying to do. So, for me, that's your primary driver on what makes performance. Now, when you get into, is this a rendering powerhouse and all of that? Absolutely not. Just for sake of argument here, we're looking at a Cinebench R24 score, giving the laptop the full empanada on power. Gets a Cinebench R26 core of 1025, which is pretty solid. And I'm going to say actually outpaces the older Razer laptop when it comes to the Cinebench score, which is pretty cool. But gets utterly demolished by a older desktop chip. So I got a Ryzen 7000 series for the desktop, and that gets around 18, almost 1900 points in Cinebenchmark 24. And just because 24 is a little bit different, and some people may not truly grasp the scaling on 24 versus 23. 23 was pretty easy to tell the differences because the scores were so drastically different. The R24 groups the scores way closer together. So the difference in between a few hundred points is very significant on these scores. So just to give you the balance of where all that's out, I do also have the numbers for my 256 thread EPYC server, and that gets 3,600 points. So again, the difference in between a laptop at 1,000 points and a server at 3,600 points. So again, point difference, like numerically, not that massive, but do understand like each little bracket of points makes a huge difference here. So again, this is long short. This is a very good laptop. The note that I will also make on performance is that it does scale pretty, like it starts dropping out pretty fast. So when you're looking at the very first, so that 1025 score, you're looking at a package temperature that peaked at 90 C at 35 watts, which is not bad in all honesty. And then that's at its maximum performance. So it pegs the fans out at 100% and then lets it have as much as it can while keeping the temperature under 90. Well, under 90 or under. If you back it back down to the standard profile, you will immediately shave off a significant score here and bring it down to 850. Now, this is not terrible in this regard. So as you look at this one, you're also going to see the package power stays peaking at 35. So it will still peak to 35, but it brings the temperature maximum down pretty significantly. So we're now at 87 degrees C. So again, you're not spinning the fans up at 100%, so you are losing some performance, but in the end, you're still getting a significant amount of performance. Again, we're talking about a 35 watt laptop that is outpacing the older Razer laptop that was pushing over 100 watts into that original Intel 12th gen. So again, it's where we have been and where we are now is truly incredible. I mean, this is the stuff that we used to dream about back in the day. It's like, I would love to have this type of performance without sacrificing anything, and I feel like this is it. Again, we can only go up from here, but goodness gracious, this feels good. Like I said, this is, when you pick this laptop up, it's like, oh my gosh, this is so light. It can't do anything, but in reality, it can. So, yeah, for me, that's pretty darn cool. I did make a note here as well that, for single core stuff, this thing boosts pretty hard. Again, you've got kind of a multi-tier architecture in here where you've got the very fast full cores, and then you've got the slower compact cores. And so overall, again, when you're doing lightly threaded stuff, which is most of what you do on the day-to-day, it is very fast, very snappy. All while, under day-to-day stuff, this thing sips power. Absolutely sips it. The other very large chunk that I wrote here was talking about the dedicated VRAM. So when I first approached this laptop, I immediately saw the dedicated VRAM button. I was like, oh, very clearly that's what I need to do, is turn on dedicated VRAM, right? It's just, I don't know, in my head that made sense, and again, I had seen a couple of reviews kind of lean into that as well. I'm going to go on record and say that is completely wrong. Leave this thing on automatic unless you have an application that absolutely demands that it see dedicated VRAM. And I've tested, I don't have the empirical data in front of me, but I have done a battery of 3D Mark tests in this regard and found that, yes, actually just leaving this on auto works way better. It's all going to pull from the primary RAM no matter what. And so, again, you would think dedicating a chunk would be better. I mean, it's not being interfered with system and all this other stuff, but it's the polar opposite is true. You will actually see a performance improvement by leaving this in auto. It's not a tiny improvement either. It is noticeable. So, yeah, I just wanted to call that out because, again, it seems a little counterintuitive, but that's kind of where it is. The other one is going to be so just for, since I've got it here, I will try and pop these numbers up on screen as we go through, but for 3D Mark, I wanted to throw just a couple in here. So right now, one of 3D Mark's newest tests is the Steel Nomad. I've run Steel Nomad Lite as it's better suited for this type of computer. Honestly, it's better suited for laptops in general. But so the ZenBook S16 is capable of pulling 3,300 points in Steel Nomad Lite. The Razer is capable of pulling 14,000 points. And my desktop computer is capable of pulling 41,000 points. So, again, you're looking at a onboard GPU for 3,300, a dedicated GPU, laptop GPU for 14,000 points, and then a 4090 in a desktop environment for 41,000 points. So you can see the scale is pretty drastic. But what I want to indicate here is that you should not go into this thinking that this is going to be a gaming powerhouse. It's not. That's not its goal in life. You want to hook up an external GPU or something like that, go for it, but that was not this guy's goal in life. But what it can do, especially when you give it an older title, is that it can run those pretty darn well. Again, any of your thin-end lights are a joy to run on this. Your more powerful titles, again, I tried some Baldur's Gate and stuff on here. It can work, but you've got to kind of fight with it a little bit. Some games are capable of understanding the 16:10 aspect ratio, some are not, but for the most part, if you don't have a crazy demanding title, you can make some pretty decent progress on this. So, again, not your gaming powerhouse, never was the goal of this laptop, but for, I need to pop open a game while I'm in a hotel and, just relax for a bit, yeah, this has got you covered. And all the while doing it without causing a ruckus. Its fans they are higher pitched, but they are not crazy. When you start doing something on the Razer, it is very apt to tell you that, hey, I'm doing something right now. So, I really feel like, again, performance is above what you would anticipate for a laptop that is A, this thin, and B, that has again, the ability to go into power sip mode like you would not believe. So, and that actually is going to take me into the next chunk here, and that is going to be battery life. So, I know there have been publications and stuff. I even looked at the ASUS documents before this. They quote all day with Again, no asterisk on what that exactly means. The reality is, this laptop, you're not reaching for the power cord. And when you do reach for the power cord, you're going to be amazed to find that your cell phone charger can put some juice back into this thing. You're not, like, if you're actively trying to crunch, you got Cinebench running and you're trying to feed it off a cell phone adapter, no. But you got it in low brightness and you're just kind of web browsing, yeah, you can actually feed charge into this off of a cell phone charger. Again, I've done it off of the Samsung 45 watt and I want to say the OnePlus 65 watt as well. OnePlus is a little bit weird because their power standards are not the same as everybody else's. But again, you toss this with the provided power brick. It's this tiny little 65 watt power brick. You can take it anywhere. And because it runs off of USB-C, means that you can use USB-C cables and you don't have to go crazy on it. Again, I've got some Anker USB cables, nice and long. You don't have to scramble for a wall charger. When you get one of these long USB-C cables, go for it. Put the charger somewhere else in the airport and plug this in from a mile away. So, the other thing that's I want to call out on battery life is while it's on battery, you're not getting like a super crippled system either. You're getting a fairly responsive system. Again, it is going to bring down your hardcore full utilization system, but again, for your day-to-day stuff, on battery is pretty darn good. And I'll even go on this and say, like, for your lightweight games, I'm going to call out Brotato in this one. You can run that game on battery for hours. I want to say I was at probably 5 hours on battery just doing that game. Brightness all the way up, no compromises. Again, this is not a demanding title in any sense of the word, but it does hold the laptop on. It is using, compute power, and, I've got the screen all the way up. At no point was I, I'm running out of juice. So I want to say by the time I was done, still had 50% of battery left. And the other part I want to call out here is that this is not a huge battery either. I want to say it's like 70,000 milliwatts. So your maximum that you can take through an airport is somewhere around 90. And so that's generally what I've been using up until this point. The Razer runs 90. I think the Surface Book combined was also right around that 90 range. So this is actually less battery capacity, but blows past the others just because of how efficient the architecture is. So battery's amazing. Let's see here. The next one that we had was going to be keyboard and trackpad. So again, it's a laptop keyboard. Don't put your hopes up to the moon. This is not a mechanical, clicky-clacky, amazing keyboard, but it will get the job done. Again, I know people will dive into these types of things and be like, oh, well, it's got 1.44 hypermillimeters of travel and all this. It's like, it types. Is it the most amazing keyboard I've ever used in my life? No. The one thing I will call out, though, is the backlight. So a keyboard without backlight is a sin against all humanity. It should come standard on anything made within the last 10 years. But what I do miss, though, is the ability to have color options. I know this is petty, and I know a lot of people hate RGB, but there is something about setting a color profile that you really like, and this is just only white. Now, will only white get the job done? Absolutely. But does it make me smile when I go and look at that Razer? No, it's not the same. But that said, it gets the job done. The part that I did not like, though, was it does have an auto dimming feature that's supposed to be able to, again, save some battery life by turning off the backlight when you don't need it. I found it did the opposite. So when I needed the backlight most, it was off. When I didn't need the backlight, it was on. I ended up just disabling that feature altogether. It's ambient light sensing, but I felt like it kept making decisions that didn't make sense. So, again, disabled that. Your mileage may vary. And then onto the touchpad. So this has a colossal touchpad. And just absolutely massive. And it is a joy to use. It's huge, it's smooth, it's, again, everything you're looking for in a touchpad. The fact it's so big, they've also added gesture control to the top and the right side of the touchpad. I ended up turning those off as well. They are very useful to have, but I found, I don't know, not that I forgot that they were there, but I tended to find they got in my way more than they were useful. Now, again, mileage may vary there, but for me, it wasn't a great fit for my use case. The other one there is that because the touchpad is so massive, sometimes the clicks can be difficult because you'll be, way up in the top right-hand corner, just because that's where you're at, and you need to click on something and then realize, oh, I've got to walk through the woods to go find the click down at the bottom. You always double tap, but again, it's just, sometimes its size can be a detriment. But for the most part, I'm going to say 99% of the time, it's amazing. The other one there is palm rejection. So, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I have always struggled with palm rejection. So, I can't think of a laptop in recent memory that I have not struggled with palm rejection. So, again, maybe it's just something with me, but I continue, even on this one, to have palm rejection issues, especially when I'm doing long typing sessions. And there is nothing more frustrating than plowing through a large chunk of text, and then you look up and realize that the cursor had moved 2 or 3 times, and so now you just have unintelligible garbage, and you can't really figure out where each touch went. So, yeah, it's just like, it's frustrating. But, again, that may just be a me thing. I've read lots of reviews that say the palm rejection is amazing, so, again, maybe I just have weird palms. Okay, so, small blurb about sound. Honestly, I've seen some other people say the sound was absolutely horrible on this. Maybe compared to a MacBook Pro or something, but in all honesty, for the size of this laptop, it sounds pretty darn good. Is it going to be the most amazing sonic experience where I'm going to forget, my really nice headphones? Absolutely not. Is it going to make me forget my so-so FiO headphones? No. But is it good in a pinch? Absolutely. I mean, this is honestly much better than you would anticipate given the size of this laptop. All right. We're closing in now, boys. So, now we get to the fun stuff. So, we're into storage. So, storage is where the laptop falls apart. So, the laptop ships with an abysmal 1 terabyte hard drive. Could it be worse? Yes, but honestly, 1 terabyte is pretty darn bad. But all of the reviews that I've watched up until this point are like, yes, it has a 1 terabyte hard drive, but guess what? It's really easily accessible. And I 100% agree with those reviewers. Technically, it has torques, but that's fine. But you can get to that drive really easy. Where the problem starts is that ASUS has, as far as I can tell, something terribly wrong in the BIOS. Because on a hardware level, I can come up with absolutely no reason whatsoever that on a hardware level, this laptop can't support more than 1 terabyte. Officially, well, based on many correspondence with the ASUS tech support, only 1 terabyte is officially supported. 2 terabytes, you're on your own. 4 terabytes, just absolutely forget about it. And the gall that I had to want to put an 8 terabyte drive in here, we're not even talking on the same plane of existence at this point. So, and this kind of digs into support as well, but this one was bad. Really, really, really bad. So, when you put a drive that is larger than 1 terabyte, you have a couple of different options that'll happen. So, put in a 4 terabyte, it'll turn on, post just fine, but the BIOS just flat out won't recognize it. It doesn't detect a hard drive at all. If you go for a 2 terabyte drive, depending on what you're doing and the time of day and the position of the sun and the moon, it might pick it up and start running. But you will run into two very interesting things very quickly. So, of course, me being me, if I'm forced to use a 2 terabyte drive, I'm going to put a really good 2 terabyte drive in there, right? So, I went and put the Samsung 980 or whichever one the NVMe 4 was going to be. So, sorry, PCIe 4 NVMe drive. So I pop that in there, it boots, I test, and it crashes. Like, that's really weird. Do I have a bad drive? At this point, I'm not really suspecting the drive. Due to all of the string of issues that I've had up until this point, trying to get 4 terabyte drives worked, all of this crap. So I start digging into this a little bit more. Because again, it'll turn on, it'll run for a second, and then it'll crash. Especially if you try and run like a Cinebench, a Crystal Disk Mark on it. And so the more I dug, and then it occurred to me, it is not dissipating heat of this drive. So it's a very thin chassis, but the drives are not making contact correctly. So I went back, I grabbed some thermal pads, thermal pad the bottom and the top, and guess what? It'll run now. I don't want to jinx it, but it's stable. So there's another feature in there that will cause it to fall apart, and that is Samsung does have the ability to turn the drive up to its full performance. That will immediately cripple it. Again, it's a thermal runaway problem where I'm not sure. There's a couple of things there. So again, the laptop is so thin, and you have to remember that, again, you're looking at a 35 watt maximum for the CPU on this. So with a 35 watt maximum CPU, when you add in an NVMe drive that is theoretically capable of pulling 15 watts on its own, there's just nowhere to dissipate that heat. And so very quickly, you will just run into the thermal runaway problem. Again, that can be mitigated with the thermal pads. And for a while, I thought, well, maybe I found out the reason that the 4 terabyte drives work. But in all honesty, I slapped the thermal pads on there, tried to boot it, nothing. Pulled it apart, thermal pads are still cool to the touch. So, again, I firmly believe, and I would love to be proved wrong on this one, but I truly think that there is a problem inside the BIOS with this laptop. Again, the drive supports it, all of the hardware upstream supports it. Again, any laptop that's been made in the last 10 years supports this. So the fact that they can't get this part done right, and that they were not willing to accept that they had a problem, was very, very frustrating. And so this, to me, was the biggest, most egregious problem with this laptop. Again, it cripples usability. I can't describe how crippling this is. So for me, one of the things that I really want to be able to do is to be able to go out and shoot with my camera. And again, it's one of those where I'm shooting with a 2 terabyte CF Express card, and yeah, the laptop can't receive a 2 terabyte CF Express card. So if I go out, I spend all day shooting, I'm not fitting it on this laptop and then going out and taking more shots. It's just can't do it. So for me, this was really bad. Again, this is probably where the majority of this title comes from, is due to this. And again, the fact that none of it makes any sense at all. So now we're going to get into number 2 here. And this is going to be the fun one because, again, on the surface, this is amazing. You've got a laptop with a full-size Type A port, a full-size SD card slot, a rarity in this day and age, 2 high-speed USB-C ports. These are very good USB-C ports. So you can plug these into docking stations. You can get a lot done with these USB-C ports. Really, really like them. You've got an actual headphone port. Again, the crowd goes wild. And then you've got a standard HDMI. Everything you ever wanted, right? But ASUS just couldn't put the shovel down. They kept digging on this one. So ASUS, for some unknown reason, my God, why, decided that they would slap an HDMI 2.1 full stop port in here instead of the industry standard HDMI 2.1B port. What does that mean? So you get a crippled bandwidth with this ancient port type. Again, I popped it up and was going to hook it up to a couple of my screens, actually. So the first one I did was I grabbed and tried to plug it into my 8K screen downstairs, and it didn't work. And I'm like, that's really weird. Maybe I just got a setting wrong? Then I took it upstairs and I plugged it into one of my other screens, which is a 4K 144 hertz. And it wouldn't work there either. And then I started digging, really digging, and I looked at the spec sheet. And they are technically correct because they say it's an HDMI 2.1 port. They don't specify it's an A or B. And they use a little bit of jargon at the end of it. Again, technically correct, but not one I've seen used anywhere else, to be honest. And so by putting that at the end, they effectively deflect you from realizing that I don't even want to say cheaped out. The difference in these ports is nothing. So why ASUS? Why would you do this? Again, this is considered a premium device, but you've decided to save 1 penny, or maybe even not that, a half penny for each laptop that you're producing. Again, you're not shipping enough volume on this. I don't understand it. And so, again, they slapped this TMDS verbiage on the end of it. And so it misleads you into thinking that, oh, well, clearly it's, the more recent standard. But no, in all actuality, this is a low-speed port, and you cannot run most of your stuff off of this. So it was just super frustrating. Again, in a vacuum, I probably could have let the HDMI port slide. Probably. But when you add that on top of the SSD issues, it's just like, I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know how you could take such an amazing device and then literally pull defeat straight out of what should have been a home run. It's unfathomable. I have worked on a lot of laptops that have had some weird quirks and stuff, but never a laptop that I have looked at and gone, this is exactly what I wanted. To find out that it has weird, crippling flaws deeply embedded into the system that can't be overcome. Again, most of the time, a manufacturer's decision to slap in a smaller hard drive, great, I can get around that. I understand you're trying to save, $10-15 here and there. Great. I don't agree with it, but I can fix that. But to bake in such a problem so deeply is, again, I don't understand it. Now, the other part that I want to pull up here very quickly, and we're just going to plow through this, is going to be support. The support is, quite frankly, terrible. They have no idea what the product is. you're going to cycle through technicians that are going to pick up your email that have never seen your email before and will ask you to perform the exact same steps that the technician tried to get you to perform last time. It will languish. They will escalate to a tier 2. They won't provide tier 2 with the appropriate information that you painstakingly detailed, and then send you the same response again, and again, and again. They will argue with you over what a qualified vendor list is supposed to be. They will make up excuses and just generally lie about things. At one point, I got an agent that told me the ZenBooks aren't considered a quality product. Only our ROG line is supplied with a qualified vendor list. That really ticked me off. So I did go and find their ROG line that's very similar to this. That does not have a qualified vendor list either. Again, if you're going to lie to me, make sure you got your parts right, because God, I am going to call you on it. I really will. It's just abysmal. They should know better. They should do better. I've been using ASUS for, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say 15 plus years. I think actually my second motherboard that I ever bought back in the X58 era was ASUS, and I used ASUS extensively since then. I've had their laptops, I've had their motherboards, I have their monitors. Generally pretty darn good. I've had amazing tech support back in the day with these groups, so to see them fall so hard on this just really disappoints, because I know they can do better. They should do better. Now, let's go into closing thoughts on this one. So, realistically, what I have written down here is 100% correct. This has been one of the hardest products to review. I review a lot of stuff. I want to say it's like for Vine and other things like that, I'm reviewing roughly 80 pieces of equipment or 80 products a quarter. So I review a lot of stuff. That said, there are some out there that are, it's a weird product that doesn't really do a lot, so I can't write 4 paragraphs about it. This is not that. This was unbelievably hard to review because I wanted to love this product. It was everything I was looking for. And so I fought tech support tooth and nail. I tried to get it over the hump, but I just couldn't do it. And so I went from a laptop that, honestly, I should have praised. There should have been ticker tape parades. I should have told everybody that I know, please go out and buy this. I don't care if you don't need a laptop right now. You're going to go buy one of these. Instead, this will not be a recommended laptop from me. Am I going to keep it? Yes. Am I going to continue to try and follow up with BIOS updates and stuff and see if this can be resolved? Yes. But am I going to tell anybody else to buy this laptop? No, I really am not. In fact, I'm going to tell people the opposite. Please don't buy this laptop. Buy revision 2 or whatever comes after this that they fix this crap. But don't buy this one. This is feeding a problem and shouldn't be done. So, realistically, again, this has everything that it needed to do to become one of the best products that I have reviewed in a very long time. One of the few products that I was seriously excited for. Again, barring servers and stuff that are so niche, they're not a review. But no, this was, again, one of those products. You pull it out of the box, you're like, wow. And then you open the screen and you're like, wow, wow, wow. But it couldn't cinch it. It stumbled, and then it fell, and then it got run over. So it's sad. It really, really is. So with that, I'm going to sign off on this one. I hope and pray that somebody out there sees these reviews, the ones that I'm going to post online, the YouTube videos, etc., and makes the appropriate decision that, unless 1 TB is what they're looking for, maybe they should find another brand. And maybe ASUS should take a long, hard look inside and say, where did we screw up and how do we make it better? So with that, I'm going to sign out. Thanks.